Everyone. Welcome everyone to our CCCOER EDI Facilitator training today. I want to welcome all of you as facilitators of our summer EDI book club. We are really happy to see all of you here this year, and we are looking forward to a really great fourth book club in 2024. There is a link here, and we'll share it in the chat, to our facilitator's handbook. We recently updated that handbook, and so we'll be referring to portions of it during this training, but it's something that we encourage you to take a look at before your session and even today. And if you have any questions about what's in there, this is a time to ask, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. All right, so my name is Wade Oshiro. I am the Interim Learning Commons and Library Coordinator at Leeward Community College in Pearl City, Hawaii. And I'm also the University of Hawaii Community College System OER Initiative co-lead.
Hello, I'm Andrea Scott. I am the co-VP of the CCCOER EDI committee. I have been in the open education community for 10 years, and I will turn the time over to Ted.
Yeah, welcome to our EDI Facilitator training. I'm Ted, or Tosapon Intara Bamrung. I'm librarian at Roxbury Community College, Boston. I'm kind of proactive member for EDI group and CCCOER. Happy to see you here. Okay, I can introduce Lauren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Kaiser. I'm the Digital Content Open Access Librarian at College of DuPage, located in the western suburbs of Chicago. It's really good to see everyone.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about our EDI committee, we do have a webpage, and the link has been shared in the chat. So take a look at that, and you can see, learn more about the committee and the work that we do. So this is our agenda today. So we're going to talk about the intersection of EDI and OER. We'll talk a little bit about our committee, its purpose, and the history of our book club. And then we're going to segue into the actual facilitation portion, the actual training component today, which is about the facilitation of our book club. We're going to talk about the role of norms in the space that we create during the book club. And then we're going to introduce inclusive facilitation techniques, talk about OEG Connect as a asynchronous platform for discussion, and then kind of end with session planning and next steps.
Okay, now what about EDI and OER? So far, we know that what it means about OER, open educational resources. Our students love it because they save their money rather than buy expensive textbooks. They have free textbook for them to access online. But we have EDI group. We want to get the meaning and then engage our students to access, to share their experiences. And then we have to create like kind of open education and open pedagogies to bring in our student experiences from diversities of age and genders and disabilities to share their direct experiences. And EDI is a group try to generate like a movement for our OER and get them real meaning through our book club. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay, before moving forward, we have to get our purpose first. I gotta read it out. The purpose is advocate for open educational practices to empower contribution from diverse learners and educators who have been underrepresented. Now, we know that we working for community colleges or some universities in the public colleges. We have diverse, we have more adult students, we have the students from minorities group. Now, those kind of students, we want to have them to share their experiences through OER movement. And then plus our group, EDI group discussions, we can participate and share our direct experiences so that we can gain the real meaning and then apply or adapt our real meaning for OER. Okay, and based on our CCC OER strategic plan, pillar number 1. Okay, next slide, please. And what we do now, we try to develop the project addressing equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's very important. And I try to identify ways to increase our equity into open movement and present, promote, and workshop. For example, this group like a book discussions. And then we try to identify method to increase the representation of our marginalized educators and students in through OER. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, why we do it? I want our team to share their direct experiences. I can start first. I'm very kind of proactive members. I want to gain the real meaning by through exchanging a conversation through our group discussions. And I believe in the value of book club because the book which we selected it so far almost 4 years, I gain many like meanings and then I apply the real meaning to my local college. It's very valuable. I want to call my colleagues to share their direct experiences about passion.
I can go next, Ted.
Yes.
Thank you. So why am I interested in this work? So for the past 20 years, my career has been involved in some form or shape of working with underserved populations and removing the barriers of higher education. That's been in various fields, nonprofit, public, private. In the past 10 years, my work has shifted and focused more solely on open education. And so for me, it's a very natural fit. It's hard for me to see open education or OER without the equity, diversity, inclusion lens within it. Because for me, it's very much open education is about access to knowledge equity, who has the right to create knowledge, who has the right to access it, whose voices are missing. And in reference to the book club, I feel like this space is very much, I appreciate it because it's a time for us to come together and learn. It's a safe space and it gives some time for reflection and conversation with other individuals who are interested in engaging in this learning experience together. And I'll pass the time over to Wade.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. I've been involved with OER at my institution and system for 10 years this year. So OER was my entry into equity work. And I think and the book club itself, the first book club in 2021, the book that was read was From Equity Talk to Equity Walk. And when I participated in that book club, it gave me the courage to kind of really dive a little deeper into this kind of work beyond just, OER is still the kind of the overall focus of what I do, at least in this kind of this particular role I have. But learning more deeply about what equity is beyond OER itself, and participating in the book club kind of served as the spark for me to really learn more, because none of us have been trained, or at least I'm a librarian by training. I wasn't trained to do equity work. And so I really felt a need to educate myself, and participating in the book club, that first book club really gave me the confidence to further my learning, and then also to be you know, a bit more active. And that's kind of how I ended up being a part of the EDI committee. But that first book, one thing that it really taught me and that stuck with me is the idea of first generation equity practitioner. And I don't come to this work with formal training. And so it gives me kind of this little space, grace, to come into this space knowing that, you know, this is something new to me. I'm learning. And with the book club, with this book club that we have, you know, I feel we're creating a space where we all can learn with each other. And now I'll turn this over to Lauren.
Thanks, Wade. I think I share a lot of similar sentiments in that as a librarian, this work has been deeply embedded in my practice for years. I've been in the open space for about 10 years as well. It sounds like we all kind of came to this work at similar times. And so yeah, see it deeply integral to the work that I do on a daily basis, both with open, but also kind of in my larger work as a librarian. This is my first year serving on the EDI committee. So this is also my first year doing the book club. So I'm really looking forward to this book specifically, and engaging in conversations kind of around larger EDI work as well with all of you this summer.
Thank you, Lauren. Andrea?
Yes, so the CCCOER EDI book club, I cannot believe it as I was typing this out. This is the 4th year. How great is that? So the purpose is to share knowledge with the OER community on equity, diversity, and inclusion through online book discussion. And so it's aimed to support educators and administrators and implement practices and strategies and frameworks, which are presented during the book club sessions. And so this just highlights the past books that we have read. All have been great, and we have taken away great conversations and great learning opportunities from these. Can you advance to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this summer, as most of you know, or I hope you know, I don't want to assume you know, but we are reading Academic Ableism, Disability in Higher Education. Our first book club session will be June 13th, and we will meet every other Thursday. It's a 1-hour session. It's 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. I'm not going to read all these time zones, but you get the point. We meet synchronously every other Thursday and asynchronously on OEG Connect. And we will talk a little bit more about OEG Connect a little bit later in the presentation. So with the facilitator sessions, generally we have 1 to 2 facilitators per session, but it looks like this current iteration of the book club, we have 2 facilitators for each session, and we actually have extra. So we will talk about that a little bit later as well. And we are currently in the facilitator training. So if you want more information about the EDI committee, you're welcome to click on the link there. And can we advance to the next slide? Wait, I think this is you.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button.
That's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the responsibilities of the facilitator. And so first and foremost, read the book or assigned chapter in advance so that you can lead and navigate a conversation with our participants. We ask that you, prior to your scheduled session, work with your selected co-facilitator to plan out your discussion session. And oftentimes, all it is maybe one short meeting prior to your session. Working with your co-facilitator, create discussion questions and think about any activities that you might want to incorporate that are related to the reading. Both prior and during the book club session, we ask that you kind of guide and monitor the synchronous discussions that happen during the book club itself, but also asynchronous discussion that may occur in OEG Connect. And we'll be talking about OEG Connect as a asynchronous way to kind of start the discussion. And then even have maybe a post discussion kind of follow-up summary. And I just talked about post OEG Connect. So we ask that you post some discussion questions or prompts about a week before the meeting, just to get participants thinking about and reflecting about the reading and coming into the space, maybe having thought about the reading and are prepared to share during the session. During the session, we ask that you hold a neutral stance, that you're there to encourage and foster the discussion among the attendees. We want to model ourselves and hold all participants to our book club community norms, which I'll be talking about shortly. And then post-session, maybe follow up with a recap of the discussion that you facilitated. And so again, we do have a facilitator handbook that has this and other kind of information and suggestions for you as facilitators of the book club session. Liz, can you share the a link to the norms for me? Or yeah, I didn't prepare.
Sure.
Or with us, so I can read it. Okay, thank you, Liz. So Liz has posted a link to our community norms, and right now I'm gonna have it on the screen, and I'm gonna read these norms. So hi everyone, here are, hi everyone, this is our community norms. Welcome to our community of learners and open education practitioners. This is the CCCOER Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, EDI, Community of Practice. Ours is a community open to anyone who wants to explore the intersections of equity, diversity, inclusion, and open education. It is important to us that any space we provide in either synchronous community discussions or asynchronous web platforms be productive, supportive of all members, and courageous in terms of protecting the risks that people take in sharing their perspectives and ideas. Our community of practice is a place to raise questions, grow your personal and group understanding of EDI principles, and explore how your professional practices are shaped by a dominant culture within education. We know that some of the discussions we have might be difficult for people, which is why we agreed to the following guidelines. Acknowledge that the burden of EDI work disproportionately lies on Black, Indigenous, Brown, Latinx, Asian, and other communities of color, LGBTQIA, and persons with disabilities. Recognize that there are different levels of engagement in which people will be comfortable. Accept that all community members are in different places in their journeys related to EDI work. Participate to the fullest of your ability. Community growth depends on the inclusion of every individual voice. Speak from personal experience rather than trying to share other people's perspectives or feelings. Listen respectfully to all community members. Listen harder when you initially disagree, and explore what lies beneath your initial response. Allow for reflection over reaction. Allow for and nurture your and others' curiosity. Express curiosity respectfully and in a spirit of interest and need for personal growth. Explore the impact of comments and behaviors both before and after interactions within the community. Respect and maintain confidentiality and engage in this community with humility and vulnerability. Recognizing that the topic can be overwhelming, that first steps can be difficult, and that the work is ongoing. Our hope is that the community of practice and our discussion supports individuals in finding a concrete action or actions that can be taken without approval or resources from others. So that is, those were our community norms. We do ask that you set aside space at the beginning of the session to read these norms aloud to the entire group. It provides a, it does take a couple of minutes to read aloud, but it provides a space for people to enter, or it provides a moment for people to enter a space that is inclusive, safe, and allows people to learn and also be at times vulnerable if they so choose. And one thing, the reason why we read the norms at every session is because the participants change. And so it's not always the same people attending each session. So please take a look at the norms. They are also included on page 8 of the Facilitator's Handbook. And during the session, we ask that you, hold yourself as well as participants to these norms. Are there any questions? I want to leave space for questions. So I just wanted to take a moment if anyone had any questions about these norms. Okay. All right, Andrea, I'll turn it over to you now.
Yes. So what is inclusive facilitation? I often think of this as, I relate this a bit to my background in group therapy. So for the purpose of this, we are saying that leading from behind, treating participants as the experts, and the role of the inclusive facilitator is to listen, observe, and connect. So I would like to know, just from the group, before we go a little bit further into this discussion, how do you feel people are included in discussion? Like, what observations have you made? And you're welcome to enter in the chat or unmute if you'd like.
I'll jump in. Hi, my name's
Hi.
Angela Thomas. And this semester, I'm leading a community of practice for computer science at one of the colleges I teach. And they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it at all. I had an entire training that was geared towards AI and why I was going to say why it's perhaps racist, but the fact is it is. And they didn't want to participate in any of it, and they turned the training into how do we look for AI cheating instead. I was grateful that they're participating because that has been a huge struggle. So just the fact that I got them in the room is a win, and I had to give up my push of that conversation, and I went with like where the group wanted to go. But every time I bring these issues, and our topics are supposed to be equity focused, but if I bring race or gender into the conversation, they will flip it on me and not talk about it. So I am thrilled to be involved in this group. So maybe I can learn a little more tools to flip it back once in a while. But I also want to respect them I want to push their limits, but I do want to respect that they don't also want to have this conversation. So I'm trying to tread lightly, because if I push too hard, they won't participate. But if I can get a little bit in there, I'll call it a win, sort of deal. So that's kind of where I'm like, oh, My discipline doesn't want to talk about it when we talk about this stuff. So where do you go from there? Anyways.
Right. Thank you, Angela, for bringing that up. And it is true. It can be at times uncomfortable. And one of the practices that we like to use, and it's mentioned in the handbook, is that because often we are talking about topics that are uncomfortable for many, that everybody processes differently. There may be some people that have trauma. And so allowing people some space and getting comfortable sometimes with silence. That's been a hard one for me because sometimes we've sat in silence for 30 seconds and before someone feels comfortable to discuss. And that's okay. So being comfortable sometimes with the uncomfortable is part of the process. So thank you for sharing that. How about what are some habits you've observed when you feel everyone is included in a group? Does anybody want to share? Would you like to share there?
Andrea,
Yes.
I wanted to just acknowledge Mohammed had his hand raised
Oh,
earlier,
I'm
and
sorry. I didn't
I'm
see
not
it.
sure if
Thank
you
you.
want to still share
Yes,
or.
yes, please do. Thank you for holding me accountable, Wade.
No, thank you, Andrea. So you had actually said it, so that's why I lowered my hand. You had mentioned silence, and I think I feel silence is sometimes very important and essential. Whenever most of the time when I'm leading a group, it is very diverse in terms of their jobs. So it's very difficult for a lot of people just because someone is someone's boss or someone is related to someone in some kind of capacity in the hierarchy. So it's sometimes very difficult for people to open up. So being quiet or for a little bit, always I've seen that after being quiet, something happens and energy comes back and people start talking.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
I was recently part of a book group that was online, and I think it's really cool to recognize some of the tools that we have doing it virtually, which sometimes it feels like we don't have the same kind of connection. But I appreciated in this book group that there were several different ways to give our feedback or reflection or discussion or whatever you want to call it. We could speak up, we could put it in chat, and then they actually had one time they had a jam board which was anonymous, right? So people could put something anonymous, or they had a Minty which was anonymous, so folks didn't feel the pressure to have their name attached to something, but they could still get their voice heard, and then others could follow up with that conversation, and maybe they even chime in with more, but we didn't know. So that was kind of a additional plus, I think, for the virtual sphere, is that you could have all those different ways of interacting.
Right. Great. Thank you for sharing, Chelsea. I appreciate that. And that is one of the practices that we do suggest with the book club is, and I believe, I don't have the norms memorized, but I believe that the context is in there, where we do want to allow people space to participate in the ways that they feel most comfortable. And sometimes that does need to be anonymous, and that's completely okay. And I'll bring up an example of that in a little bit later. Some other strategies I'd like to mention, and this is one that the first one I'm going to bring up is possibly might make people uncomfortable, but it's the importance of accountability, right? Sometimes when we talk about that, it's uncomfortable. Like, how do we hold people accountable? In this particular, I don't recall a session. I've been involved with a book club since the beginning. I don't recall a session where we did need to remind people of the norms, but there may come a time as a facilitator, if there are maybe conversations or there are pieces of the norms that are being maybe disregarded or overlooked, it is the role of the facilitator to call attention of the group to that. And that can be done. I've seen that done in other, I would say, conferences and in other environments where there's just a gentle reminder in the chat, or just somebody speaks about it, like, I'd like to remind the group of the norms, and make sure that we're respecting everybody's space and sticking to what we agreed to as a community in this space. And it's very, although it can feel uncomfortable, holding people accountable, it's very important that that piece is exercised in holding that safe space for everyone. So, and like I said, we haven't had, I can't think of anything that we've had a situation where we've had to do other than maybe a gentle reminder. But do keep in mind, for all facilitators, Wade and I will also, and the EDI committee will also be present during these book club sessions. So if there's like a moment where you're not sure what to do, you can always message us, and we will be right there, or we can jump in if you're unsure.
Can I just jump in
Yeah,
to
sure.
add to what you just
Yes.
shared?
Uh-huh.
And I think, you know, one thing to consider when you meet with your co-facilitator is maybe to talk about strategies on how you might address situations, you know, and sometimes it could be that it could be a gentle reminder to the entire group, or it could be a direct chat to the individual just to remind them of the norms. So, you know, it is difficult and challenging to how do you negotiate this, but just having like a kind of general plan in advance might be helpful. And as Andrea shared, we've not experienced a real major issue in the past 4 years that we can remember or recall.
Right. However, I would like to demonstrate that we have just practiced the accountability piece, Wade, you and I, because when I did not see Mohammed's hand raised, you informed me and notified me. So Wade and I will often do that, where it may be something where we have overlooked, or we're looking at something else. And so we often hold each other accountable. And that's something that we are used to, and we've been working together for a while, but it's something definitely that's great to establish with your co-facilitator. If you can, that'd be great. The other point I wanted to just talk about a little bit too is reflective listening. Often listening can be a challenge. There are a lot of things going on. For me specifically in the virtual environment, there's so many things going on, from the chat to the pictures, to the presentation, to what I'm talking about. But, you know, so at times it can be distracting. So focusing on, for me, active listening helps, and how I practice that. And this is also a type of, you can look this up, this is a type of practice that's used in therapy as well, where you listen to what is being said, and you can repeat back or paraphrase to clarify the statement of what is being said. So that is one way that can be practiced. Another I've already talked about, so I'm not going to spend too much time on here, but I
Andrea, just
yes,
want to interrupt.
yes, sure.
Ted had, I think he had raised his hand briefly.
Oh,
and
yes.
I think, Ted, was there something you wanted to ask?
Yeah, because I want to read the opinion from our participant in the chat. For example, from Charities, she mentioned that the more you listen rather than talk, that's a good technique. You have to listen, you have active listening. And from Wayne, okay, you mentioned facilitators have the flexibility to use any tools to facilitate that session. That's a good tip also. That's it from our chat.
Yes. Thank you, Ted. Thank you for bringing that to our attention as well. So and if you could, Wade, I think I mentioned this, I have a new laptop. And so there's some things that are different on my screen. I'm not seeing everybody's picture. So maybe if you could notify me until I get the hang of that, which hopefully by the next book club, I will know what's going on with why I'm not seeing everybody's pictures. And that's part of the reason I'm not seeing the hand raised part. But thankfully I have a great team here who is able to help me. So thank you for that. The last piece here, I just was talking about holding space, and we've already discussed that, but I think that is such an important piece, is just to remember. And like I said, it is very hard for me. That is something I consciously have to be aware of, that sometimes the silent space is needed, and that's okay. We don't have to fill all spaces with speaking. So those are just 3 pieces. Is there anybody else that would like to add anything to this before we move on? Okay, I think I gave it a solid 20 seconds, so I'm practicing what I'm talking about. Okay, great. Can we move forward to the next slide, please? And this is you, Liz.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you to our EDI committee for going over the actual facilitation. This is more the technical part. So part of, as Wade mentioned, part of what we ask facilitators to do is post on OE Global Connect. And I apologize, sometimes it's going to say OEG Connect, sometimes it'll say OE Global Connect. We just kind of rebranded it, so not everything has been switched over. And so I wanted to just, I know most of you are probably not in OE Global Connect, so I will share my screen and show you kind of what it looks like. So this is me signed out of OE Global Connect. And I apologize for looking up. I have 2 monitors here. So if you misplace the link to the book club, this is the homepage, and what I'm mostly focusing on is this sidebar with the categories. So if you want to find the book club, there's a category just for CCCOER, and you can see everything. The book club posts are in here, but they're all mixed up. So if you want to just see the book club one, you go to the subcategory part and find the book club. So this is where we ask that you post your topics ahead of time, your kind of talking points. And you can see the book club community norms are pinned at the top here. And I am signed out right now, so there will be just a big button. There's the plus sign that says add topic right here. And if you do need to sign up, just in the top corner of every page, and anybody can sign up, so you don't need to worry about that. And I know that so this is built on the Discourse platform, so I know not everyone is familiar with that. So if you have any questions or trouble posting, you can always reach out as an administrator. I can always go in and edit things for you, or we can, go back and forth. I think that is all I needed to say about Connect. Let me see if there's any questions. Okay, I'm sure there will be questions once you guys get in there. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I would just like to add, Liz, to OEG Connect. The thing that's nice about this platform is that it has a global reach. And so if maybe people aren't able to attend the book club, but they want to be able to participate in the discussion, this is a space that they can do that. So that is one option that I do like about this platform. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about planning a session. And when we're talking about planning a session, just some ways to help get you prepared, not specifically talking about the logistics, but some of the pieces of the work that you may want to invest time in doing if you have not already done so. I don't want to make assumptions about what anybody has or hasn't done. But first, start with honest, direct, and courageous conversation with yourself. Having some self-awareness of your privilege and reflecting on your biases. There's some great resources in the handbook of tools that you can, there is I can't remember what the name of it is right now, but it's a privilege test that kind of examines your privilege. And then also some tools about how to reflect on your biases. It's, you know, as Wade had mentioned, I consider myself a first generation practitioner. And in this space, I recognize that I am learning and I'm going to make mistakes, but having some awareness and doing my own examination is helpful in the context that I am participating in this space. So that is a recommendation to take some time and do some self-reflection. Also, make an equity plan. So this can include, there's a lot of different ways to do this within your session. This can include time during the discussions, making sure that you're paying attention to all the participants, and then using the virtual meeting space. That's a very, I'm going to give you an example of how Wade and I practiced this because I like this example and it was something new. And Wade, I don't want to speak for you, but I know when we first decided to use this tool, I was very nervous because it was something new that I had not done before. But in preparation for last year during our first session of the book club, we read origin stories. I'm origin stories. What is the last part of the title and why am I forgetting it now? Pathways to the Open Movement. Thank you. And this book focuses on women of color and their experiences in the open education field and in leadership roles. And Wade and I, with this session, we wanted to introduce some tools of how we might practice positioning women of color in this space. And so we did a bit of research before our presentation, and I came across this example from an open ed conference, and it's Opening a Space and Place for Women of Color by Cynthia Orozco, Regina Gong, and Ariana Santiago. And I'll share the link for you in the space in just a minute in the chat. But this presentation gave a really great example of it was a space for women of color, and they used in their presentation what they called progressive stacking. And how it worked is for us, the progressive stacking, we wanted to acknowledge the context that women of color don't always have the space or to speak. Equal space to speak. And so what we did is we practiced this progressive stacking where we invited participants who identified as women of color. And this was also on a voluntary basis, like nobody is required to do it. They're welcome to, but again, there's no expectation to. But women of color were asked to put an asterisk by their name. And we used the raise the hand function in the questions and comments section, and we let the group know that we would be prioritizing women of color first. And if the participant was a woman of color, but they didn't want to identify their name, they could use a pseudonym, those types of things. So we practiced this, and we didn't practice this. We launched this, our first book club. We made a few mistakes, and what was really nice about it that we found is that we had accountability partners, right? So there were times that Wade would notice somebody's hand was raised and I didn't, or that somebody else was going before they were supposed to. So holding each other accountable, Wade and I practiced holding each other accountable during that session. And then the beauty of it is that by like halfway through the session, the community was also holding us accountable. So the community was familiar with this practice and was also reminding us in case that wasn't being followed. So I feel like that was just a really nice example of an equity plan that Wade and I had discussed before, of a tool we wanted to practice. And we encourage you to take a look. There's some flexibility within your session that you'll be leading. And so maybe, you know, this particular book is focused on disabilities. So maybe there's some practices that you would like to look into. And so we encourage you to talk with your co-facilitator and use the space to do that. Okay, is there anything I left off here, Wade? Because I feel like I told our story, but I didn't include you. Is there anything you wanted to add here?
Just that now that we're kind of this group, we have you are all our accountability partners. And so as we go into these sessions, you know, do not hesitate if you feel we've missed someone, we've ignored someone, not intentionally. It's, you know, usually it's because we're just trying to manage facilitating plus, you know, the chat, and, you know, and it can get challenging for some of us like me who are older and maybe aren't so great at multitasking. But yeah, I think, yeah, we can rely on each other to ensure that we are performing up to the expectations that we set for ourselves. So thank you.
Right. And Liz, thank you for sharing that, that link in the chat. I highly encourage, that was a great session. So do take a look when you have some time. Can we move to the next slide?
Okay, so far we spent around 45 minutes. We talk about the intersection of EDI and OER, and our EDI committee proposed and inclusive facilitations and EDI book club. And also Wayne just have mentioned about responsibility of facilitators, and Liz mentioned about the OEG Connect and about the norms, and the NES mentioned about session of planning. If you need more kind of review, we on this link, like a RTC OER Facilitator Handbook, you can access. I think in the chat, we post that link also, and sign up sheet, we have that link, and the Global Connect, if you want to see what about or participate, or posting or forum, feel free to do that. And next, you have to communicate. When you go to the sign up sheet, you see that who is your partner, try to develop the plan, and then start reading. Okay, any questions? So if not, we're gonna move to the next page. Is kind of in our sessions. If you have any questions, we have the contact information from the next slide. Yeah.
I think that was the last slide, Ted.
Okay.
That's why I couldn't forward through it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ted. Yeah, so that is that's what we had prepared today. Are there any questions from you about what we've covered, or anything that maybe we didn't cover that you have a question about? We have a few minutes to answer those questions. Liz did share the sign-up sheet link in the chat. We will also be sharing out the slide deck with you all, so that you have access to all those links. But yeah, are there any questions right now? One thing that we didn't include in here, but we've often done as we, so think about, you know, as the session time, the end time is near, we allocate 1.5 hours, okay? So depending on the group that's there and the discussion that you're having, you know, you're not actually, you know, you don't have to go to 1.5 hours if it feels like the discussion is kind of coming to a natural end. You can end sooner, right? So we'll leave it up to the facilitators on how you manage that. So at the as the discussion wraps up, you know, be prepared to kind of just wrap up the session. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. And then we often have maybe space, maybe a minute or so for announcements, CCCOER announcements. So Don't know if we will have any announcements, but Liz usually will have something she might want to share about things coming up with CCCOER, excuse me. So yeah, so think of a time to wrap up, how you're going to wrap up the session, the discussion, and then any space for CCCOER announcements. Andrea, I don't know. I'm gonna stop share. I should have stopped share earlier, but I'm not sure if there's any
Yeah,
other
I
things
think
that you want to add.
we mentioned for those of you who are facilitating this summer, we are going to create a Google group. If there's any reason that you wouldn't maybe not like to be a part of that Google group, we promise, first of all, we're not going to be sending out lots of emails, but it will be just the reminders, like the first week is coming up. Make sure that you have posted to OAG Connect. Is there anything that we can help with? Those kinds of things. So just making sure that we're here to support you in that facilitation piece, or if you have any questions. So maybe just, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but we are going to create that Google email. If you would like to not be part of that, maybe you can go ahead and let me know by just emailing me. So I just put my email in the chat. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So if the group, so this is how I am. I go to trainings and then I think it marinates and I think it is all sinking in. And then the time comes where I'm actually supposed to do the thing. And like, wait a second, what was I supposed to do? So don't feel like you're bothering us if you need to reach out and you do have questions about anything we covered. Do use the handbook as a resource. I would say first and foremost, if we haven't demonstrated today, we have made mistakes, we make mistakes. You're probably going to make mistakes and that's okay. This is a learning process. And part of just being here and being able to have these conversations is we commend that. So Ted, do you want to add anything? Nope. Okay. All right. How about should
Ted,
we
you're in
stick
chat.
around?
Oh, I mean, you're
Sorry.
muted. Excuse me.
Okay, that we include all informations for our training.
Yeah, so yeah, take a look at the handbook. I put the link to the presentation in the chat so you can take a look at the slides and the links there, and reach out to us if you have any questions. And I just want to thank all of you here. We were very pleasantly surprised that our call for facilitators was well received and we got people responding. I would say it was unexpected, the response that we have. And the fact that you're here today, really looking forward to going through the summer with you, the book club sessions. You know, we may not all attend, attend as many sessions as you can, but the focus would be on the session you facilitate. Committee members will be at each session to help you if needed. But otherwise, we turn over the facilitation, that session over to you. So yeah, looking forward to this summer and the sessions to come.
Wade, you know what I forgot to mention is
yeah.
that all the facilitators who attend the training and also facilitate a session will get we will provide you with a certificate once that's done. So at the end of the book club, we will go ahead and send those to you. Yeah, I forgot to mention that in our presentation.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being here today, and look forward to seeing you at our book club this summer.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.